Settle yourself in. Get comfortable wherever you are. Some people like to listen late at night, wrapped up warm beneath blankets. Others might be in the quiet of the afternoon, or sneaking a little peace in a busy day. Wherever you are, and whenever you found this story, let me know in the comments. Write the time, write the place, so we can all imagine listening together across the world. Now, close your eyes. Breathe slowly. For this story, you're not yourself. You're someone else, long ago. The year is 1835, and the streets of London are foggy and cold. You are small, no older than 8. Your clothes are secondhand, patched and torn. Your face is already smudged with soot. Your bones ache from the climb you'll soon have to make. Because tonight, and tomorrow, and the day after that, you are a chimney sweep. This isn't a story you read. It's a story you live. Every scrape of brick against your skin. Every cough of dust in your throat. Every heavy breath as you crawl through the narrow, blackened tunnels of the Victorian chimney. But before we begin your day, before we climb, take a moment. Listen to the quiet. Imagine the world outside. Horses clopping on cobblestones, the faint call of a street cellar, the murmur of voices drifting from taverns. You are here, and this is your life. The morning comes early for you, long before the sun has pushed its way over the rooftops of London. You wake not to the sound of birdsong, nor the gentle warmth of a kind home, but to the rasping call of your master. His voice cuts through the dim light of the room where you sleep, rough and sharp like coal against stone. You stir, your body heavy with weariness, though you know there's no use in pretending to sleep longer. The floor beneath you is hard, the thin cloth you lie on barely soft enough to dull the ache in your bones. All around you, other children shift and groan. They too are chimney sweeps, some younger than you, some a little older. All of you small, wiry, thin enough to squeeze through the narrow flues that twist through houses like blackened veins. You glance around the room, the air stale and damp. No warmth from a hearth, no comfort, just the smell of soot, even here where you sleep. It clings to your hair, your skin, your lungs. Your stomach growls as you sit up. Food is scarce. If you're lucky, you'll be given a piece of bread, maybe dipped in milk that's already begun to sour. Often it is nothing more than a crust, hard and dry, yet still swallowed hungrily. Today, as your master drops a small hunk into your hand, you press it to your lips without hesitation. The bread scratches your throat, but it fills a little of the emptiness inside you. Outside, the city is waking too. Horses pull carts over cobbled stones, wheels clattering. The air smells of damp earth and smoke, of coal fires already lit in wealthy houses. This is the work waiting for you. Those chimneys, tall and crooked, filled with soot that chokes the air and blackens your hands until they look older than your years. You are small. That is why you were chosen. Your size is your curse. The narrow flues, no wider than the width of your shoulders, demand children like you to wriggle through them. Adults cannot manage it. So the masters take the smallest, the frailest, and force them upwards into darkness. You have known this for as long as you can remember. Your tools are few. A small brush, a scraper, sometimes a cloth. But mostly, it is your body that does the work. Your elbows, your knees, your back pressed against brick, inching forward through suffocating blackness. Even before the climb begins, your skin remembers the sting. The sores on your knees, rubbed raw against brick, never heal properly. The cuts on your elbows reopen each day. Your lungs, already tight, wheeze when you breathe too deeply. But there is no choice. The wealthy expect their chimneys swept, for fires must burn clean. If soot builds too thick, flames can catch, and a house might be lost to fire. And so children like you crawl through, brushing, scraping, pushing soot downward to be gathered below. This morning, your master leads you through narrow alleys, past tall rows of houses. You keep close, though your legs ache, your stomach still gnaws with hunger. You know the punishment's too well if you falter. A lash, a sharp cuff to the ear, or worse, being forced up a chimney too small, with no escape but upward. At the first house of the day, you stare at the tall chimney stack. Smoke stains the bricks, and already you can feel the cold morning air biting against your face. The master orders you forward. You obey. Inside, the grate is opened. The hearth is dark, quiet, but it smells strongly of ash. You lower yourself to your knees, glance upward into the narrow black throat that leads far above. You know the fear, the closeness, the darkness, the air that grows thinner the further you climb. But you push it down. You wriggle forward, elbows digging into soot, knees scraping raw. The chimney narrows quickly. You twist your body sideways, squeezing through. Dust falls into your eyes, your mouth. You cough, choke, but keep crawling upward. In the dark, it feels endless. Every inch forward is a battle against stone and soot. Your breath comes shallow, every sound muffled. The only thing real is the pressure of walls closing in and the ache in your chest. Yet you keep going because stopping means punishment. And so you push and climb and scrape until you feel your brush catch on soot built thick against the walls. You work slowly, scraping it free, your hands trembling from the strain. Black dust falls around you, choking thick. You swallow it, eyes watering, but you do not stop. Finally, after what feels like an eternity, you emerge at the top. You cling to the edge, gasping at the cold air that rushes into your lungs. From here, you can see the rooftops stretching out, chimneys rising like crooked soldiers, the fog of London drifting over all of it. For a moment, you breathe deeply, even if the air is heavy with coal smoke. Anything is better than the suffocation below, but there is no time to rest. The master calls. Down you go, sliding back into the blackness, into the soot, into the work that never ends. When you climb back down the chimney, your arms trembling and your lungs raw, there is no cheer for your work. No pat on the head, no word of thanks. Just your master gathering the soot into his bag, muttering about moving on to the next house. Your body aches, and your face is streaked with black, but there is no chance to rest. The day has only begun. You step outside again into the street. The air here is not much cleaner than inside the chimney. The city breathes coal smoke from every rooftop, from every factory chimney that looms in the distance. London, in this time, is a city of smoke and fog, the sky heavy with soot that never quite lifts. You breathe it in without choice. Everyone does. As you walk, you pass figures in fine coats and dresses, their boots polished, their gloves spotless. They glance at you sometimes, though most do not meet your eyes. To them, you are a part of the city's machinery, a child used for work, nothing more. They see the soot on your skin, the dirt in your hair, the rags you wear instead of proper clothing. And though their fires burn bright because of your small body, squeezing through those flues, they would never imagine the fear or pain that clings to you each day. But there are others who notice. Street hawkers call out, selling roasted chestnuts or cheap pies. Some glance at you with pity, others with indifference. Children, not unlike you, but spared from your lot, play in the alleys. You hear them laugh, the sound strange and distant, like something you once knew but can no longer quite recall. Your master does not let you linger. He pushes forward through narrow lanes that twist and turn, past carts stacked with coal, past horses leaving steaming piles on the stones, past beggars crouched in doorways. This is the world you belong to, the world of the poor, the overlooked. But in the wealthier parts of town, the work is different. You are led into grand houses, where chandeliers sparkle overhead and carpets muffle your footsteps. The contrast is overwhelming. You glance at polished mirrors, catching sight of yourself. A thin child, clothes ragged, face smeared in soot, eyes too old for your age. Sometimes the ladies of the house watch from afar, lifting lace handkerchiefs to their noses, as though you carry not just soot, but disease itself. The irony is bitter. It is their chimneys you climb, their fires you keep safe. Yet to them, you are a shadow, something to be ignored once the job is done. And yet, the dangers of your work are not hidden. Everyone knows. There are stories whispered about chimney sweeps. Boys who suffocated in the dark, trapped when a flue narrowed too tight, their cries muffled until silence took them. Others fell, broken on the hearthstone below. Some coughed their lives away years later, their lungs scarred beyond repair. There are even darker tales of chimney cancer, a cruel disease that eats away at the flesh, striking sweeps far younger than other men. People know, and still, They send children like you into the smoke. You feel it already in your body. The constant cough, the ache that clings to your chest, the way your skin burns where soot rubs deep into your pores. You wash when you can, but water never seems enough. The black dust clings, sinking into your very being. Yet for all the danger, for all the suffering, your master is paid, and you see none of it. At best, you are fed. At worst, you are beaten. You are not truly free, not truly a child. You are a tool, one of many, used and forgotten. But as you trudge from house to house, your eyes catch glimpses of the larger city. You see the factories with their endless smoke, the River Thames clogged with ships and filth, the rows of workers pouring in and out like ants. You begin to understand, even if dimly, that your suffering is part of something greater, a machine that keeps the city alive. Wealth at the top, misery at the bottom, and you caught somewhere deep in the soot-covered gears. At night, when the work is done, you return to your corner of the city, back to the place where sweeps sleep. The air is no cleaner, the bedding no softer, but you collapse from exhaustion all the same. You lie awake for a while, staring at the ceiling, your mind drifting. You wonder what it would be like to live differently. To have boots without holes, hands without scars, lungs that could draw in a full breath without coughing. You imagine it, but it feels like imagining another world entirely. For now, this is life. You close your eyes, knowing tomorrow will bring another chimney, another climb, another day in the endless smoke of Victorian London. Long, but the mornings always arrive too soon. You wake once again to the harsh voice of your master, and you drag your body out of uneasy dreams. Each day feels much the same. The soot, the hunger, the scraping of knees against brick. Yet lately, there are whispers drifting through the city, words carried in doorways and markets, in taverns and churches. Words that even children like you begin to overhear. Not everyone approves of this work. There are people, reformers they are called, who say it is cruel to send children up chimneys. Cruel to force small bodies into suffocating flues, to risk lives for the sake of clean fires. They argue that there must be another way. You hear it first when passing a churchyard. A preacher stands tall, his voice rising over the clatter of carts and the cough of factory smoke. He speaks of compassion, of protecting the innocent, of the duty of the wealthy toward the poor. You cannot understand all his words, but you catch enough to know he is speaking about children like you. For a moment, your heart lifts. Could it be true? Could the world ever change for the likes of chimney sweeps? Your master scoffs when such talk is mentioned. Fools, he mutters, spitting onto the cobbles. Do-gooders who've never cleaned a chimney in their lives. He says the city needs sweeps, that there is no other way to keep houses safe. And for now, he is right. No brush, no contraption has yet replaced the thin frame of a child. You're the only solution, and so you climb. But the whispers grow louder. There are pamphlets passed around, folded papers with ink-smudged words, telling of children lost in chimneys, of deaths hidden away, of lives spent coughing in shadows. Some people shake their heads and turn the page. Others begin to listen. For you, nothing changes, not yet. The chimneys remain as narrow, the soot as thick, the pain as sharp. But when you catch those words, those faint glimmers of hope, you hold onto them like a small flame in the darkness. One evening, as you walk home with other sweeps, you overhear older boys talking. They say that in Parliament, that great hall where laws are made, men are debating the question of child sweeps. They say perhaps a law will be passed to stop it. You want to believe them, but it feels far away, like a story from another land. After all, men in Parliament wear powdered wigs and silk waistcoats. Why would they care about a soot-stained child crawling through chimneys in the fog of London? And yet, the talk does not stop. Some households begin to look uneasy when you appear at their door. A few ladies speak softly, saying they wish no child had to do such work. One even presses a small coin into your hand when your master is not looking. You hide it quickly, though your heart pounds with fear that you'll be caught. The coin is not much, but to you, it feels like a treasure, and more than that, a sign that not everyone is blind to your suffering. Still, for every kind word, there is cruelty. The master remains harsh, striking when you stumble, cursing when you cough too long. And there are other masters, worse still, who treat their sweeps like little more than tools, discarding them when they grow too big to fit the chimneys. At night, as you lie on your thin bedding, you think of those whispers. You imagine a day when perhaps no child will climb into the choking blackness. You imagine yourself free of it, walking the streets not as a sweep, but as something else, someone else. But dreams can be dangerous. The reality of morning always returns. The chimneys wait, tall and dark, and your body remains small enough to climb them. Reform may be coming, but it has not yet reached you. For now, you are still the sweep, still the one who wriggles upward into soot and silence. And so another day begins. The whispers of change follow you, faint but persistent, like a distant bell tolling in the fog, a sound you cannot ignore, even if you are not yet free. The days blur together, each chimney climb leaving its mark on your body. Knees rubbed raw, shoulders scratched, lungs heavy with soot. You live in a moment, crawl, scrape, breathe, endure, but outside your world of smoke and shadow, something stirs. You begin to hear it more often now. These talks of laws and debates, whispered between servants as you pass through kitchens, muttered in doorways, sometimes shouted by reformers in the streets. Parliament, they say, is paying attention. There have been arguments, speeches, proposals. Men in fine coats standing in candlelit halls, raising their voices about the lives of children who climb into chimneys. It is hard for you to picture it. The Houses of Parliament feel as far away as the moon. The idea that your life could be shaped by words spoken there seems unreal. And yet, change does not always arrive with fanfare. Sometimes it creeps quietly like fog rolling in from the river. You hear that in 1788, long before your time, the first law was passed to try to protect sweeps. It said no master should take a child under 8 years old. But you know how much those words mean? Not much at all. You have seen children smaller than you, no older than 6, pushed up chimneys because they fit where no one else could. The law may have been written, but the soot still clings. The suffering still continues. And still, people push back. In the early 1800s, more laws come. Some say masters must wash their apprentices once a week. Once a week, as if that could undo the stains of soot buried in skin, the cough lodged deep in the chest. Others say masters must provide clothing, or that children must not be forced to climb flues when stuck. You laugh bitterly at that one. Who, after all, is watching? When you are wedged in the dark, and the master's stick is poking at your feet. What law can protect you then? For years, these laws exist more on paper than in practice. The work continues. Children still climb. You still climb, but you cannot ignore that the words are growing louder, that more people are beginning to take notice. You remember one afternoon, passing through a fine square where wealthy houses stand in rows. A group of ladies gather, their voices sharp as they speak of the poor children. You hear your own life in their words, though they glance away when you look at them. They do not truly see you, not as a person, but as an image in their cause. Still, the idea that they speak of sweeps at all plants a strange seed in your heart. And then there are the inventors. Strange men with stranger ideas. Long rods with brushes attached. Contraptions designed to clean chimneys without children. You hear your master curse them often. Machines, he spits. Never do the job right. Can't bend. Can't reach. Can't see. He insists that nothing can replace a child's body twisting through the narrow brick. And for now, he is right. The machines are clumsy, the rods too stiff. But in time, perhaps they will grow stronger. The thought frightens you. If machines can clean chimneys, what happens to children like you? Perhaps freedom. Perhaps only hunger on the streets. The world can be cruel in more ways than one. At night, you lie awake, the talk of laws and machines circling in your mind. You picture men in Parliament nodding solemnly, writing words with ink on parchment. You wonder if they ever imagine the taste of soot, the scrape of brick, the panic of lungs burning for air. Likely not. They live in a different world entirely. But still, the whispers grow. The laws pile up. First words, then amendments, then more debates. And though your day-to-day life does not yet change, there is a strange tension in the air. The sense that something is shifting, however slowly, like the grinding of great stones. For now, you wake again tomorrow, climb again tomorrow, breathe soot again tomorrow. The laws may be written far away, but the chimneys are still here, waiting. And so you live in the in-between, trapped in soot and shadow, yet haunted by the possibility of a world that might, one day, decide children should no longer be swallowed by fire and smoke. The morning wears on, and the soot that coats your hands now feels like part of your skin. You don't remember the last time they were truly clean. The man who owns you, though he might never use that word, calls you his boy. To him, you're less a child and more a tool, no different than the stiff brushes, the scraping rods, or the soot cloth bag slung across his back. You earn him money, but you see little of it. Your payment is food in your stomach, rags on your body, and a roof above your head. And even that roof is shared, often in the cold, damp corner of a cellar, with other boys just like you. The master's voice cuts through the street noise. He shouts at you to hurry, for there are still more houses to be done. Each chimney means coins in his pocket. Each climb means danger in your chest and soot in your lungs. But you nod quickly, because disobedience means worse than sore limbs. You've seen what happens when another boy dared to drag his feet, to mutter back under his breath. A sharp strike with the cane, sometimes more than once, until the boy whimpered and did as he was told. You pull the soot bag over your shoulder again. It is heavy now, filled with black dust and ash scraped from the walls of countless chimneys. The smell clings to you, harsh and acrid, burning the back of your throat. As you walk, you notice passers-by wrinkling their noses and stepping aside, as though you carried disease itself. In truth, you carry something close. Your lungs ache, your breath comes shallow, and though you are young, the cough that rattles inside you sounds like it belongs to an old man. The next house looms larger, wealthier, with tall chimneys that promise more work. The lady of the house opens the door, her gloves spotless white, her dress pressed neatly, and her face turned away as though she cannot bear to look directly at you. She waves your master inside, then vanishes back into polished hallways where carpets muffle her steps. You are left with the cracks in the brick, the soot-filled passageways, and the master's command ringing in your ears. Up you go. The climb begins again. This shaft is narrower than the last, pressing against your shoulders as you try to wriggle higher. Your knees scrape against the rough brick, tearing at skin already raw from earlier climbs. The air grows hotter as you inch upward. The fire beneath still smolders, and the warmth of it rises, filling the confined space. Sweat beads on your forehead, but it only makes the soot stick faster, coating you until you are more shadow than child. Halfway up, your foot slips. Your heart pounds as you clutch at the sides, pressing yourself into the bricks, praying not to fall. The shaft seems endless, and your body feels smaller than ever in its grip. You drag yourself upward, inch by inch, arms trembling, lungs burning with every gasp. There's no time to stop, no room to rest. The only way forward is up. Finally, you reach the bend near the top, where the smoke gathers before it drifts into the open sky. The space is so tight here you can hardly move, your body twisted into angles that no child should have to bear. You push your brush through the flue, scraping, 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 until the sound of loose soot trickling downward tells you the work is done. Yet with every stroke, you imagine pieces of yourself falling with it. Your breath, your youth, your strength. When you at last emerge into the faint light above, the world feels too bright, too free. You squint against the daylight, taking in a rare sight of the sky. But there is no time to linger. The master is below, waiting impatiently, reminding you with his shouts that the soot bag still must be emptied, and another chimney still waits. The glimpse of sky is fleeting. The climb down is harder than the climb up, and with each slip of your tired hands you wonder if today might be the day your body finally gives in. At the bottom, you land with a dull thud, sore and trembling. Your master takes the soot bag from you, weighing it in his hands. He nods with satisfaction, as though you were a mere beast of burden that has done its job well. He does not thank you. He never does. Instead, he pushes you toward the next house, the next climb, the next mouthful of smoke. And so the day continues, with no end in sight. You walk the narrow streets of London, every step echoing with the thought that this is your life. And unless something changes, it always will be. By midday, the city seems to press in on you from every direction. The streets are crowded with carriages rattling over cobblestones, horses stamping and neighing, and vendors calling out to sell bread, fish, and trinkets. The air is thick with smoke, not just from chimneys, but from factories rising across the city, their tall stacks belching dark clouds into the sky. London feels alive, but not in a way that comforts you. It is restless, choking, and unforgiving, much like the chimneys you climb. You trail behind your master, your legs heavy from the morning's work. The soot bag digs into your shoulder, leaving a deep mark across your skin. Other boys pass by with their masters, and for a brief moment, your eyes meet. You see yourself reflected back. Thin arms, blackened faces, eyes too tired for a child. None of you speak. There is no time for words. And besides, what would you say? You all already know. The next house is smaller, though its chimney proves no less cruel. As you wait for your turn to climb, you hear the family inside laughing over their midday meal. The smell of roasted meat drifts into the air, rich and savory, making your stomach twist with hunger. You have eaten nothing since dawn. Perhaps, if your master is in a decent mood later, there might be bread crust for you. But for now, you press your hand against your stomach, willing the pangs to quiet. The master's call jerks you back to your work. You kneel at the base of the chimney and peer upward. It is narrow, but not the narrowest you've known. With a sigh that feels older than your years, you begin to climb. The familiar scrape of brick against your knees and elbows sets in, and once again the black dust fills your throat. Your cough echoes inside the shaft, loud in the silence, though you try to stifle it so your master won't scold you later. Halfway up, you pause to catch a breath. The shaft seems endless, but you force yourself upward, one limb at a time. You think about the warmth of the fire that once burned below, about how close the flames might have been to licking at your heels had the lady of the house chosen to keep her hearth lit. A shiver runs through you at the thought. Many sweeps are not so lucky. There are stories whispered among the boys of children who became stuck, unable to move up or down, their cries muffled by the soot and the brick until silence claimed them. You've seen masters drag boys out of chimneys cold and still. You pray you will not be one of them. At last, you break through into the bend near the top, where the chimney narrows before it opens to the sky. The light above is faint, but enough to remind you that there is still a world outside this prison of brick. You push your brush upward, loosening soot and ash, your arms shaking with the effort. Each stroke sends more dust raining down, coating your hair, your lashes, your lips. You try not to think about how much of it you swallow, how much sinks deeper into your lungs with every breath. Finally, you crawl out onto the rooftop. The city sprawls below you, vast and endless. From here, the streets look like veins carrying life through a giant body, and you are a tiny part of it clinging to its skin. For a fleeting second, you imagine what it might be like to walk freely on these roofs, not as a servant, not as a sweep, but as a child chasing the sky. But then the master's voice cuts through the air again, sharp and demanding, and the dream fades as quickly as it came. You clamber back down, your body sore, your hands raw. At the bottom, the master inspects the soot bag and nods again. Still no thanks. Still no kindness. Just another command, another house, another climb. And so the day drags on, each chimney a shadow of the last, each climb blurring into the next. The city never sleeps, and neither, it seems to you, by the time the sun begins to dip lower in the sky. Your body feels as though it has been carved hollow. The soot clings to every inch of you, even beneath your fingernails, in the creases of your skin, and inside your lungs where no brush can reach. Each breath you take seems heavier, as though the very air of London has been steeped in ash. You cough into your sleeve, leaving behind a black stain, but there is no time to dwell on it. Your master's eyes are sharp, and his temper sharper still. The houses blur together. Narrow staircases, high ceilings, stone hearths. Each one feels the same after a while, and yet each chimney holds its own tricks, its own cruel way of catching you off guard. Some are tight and crooked, bending sharply as though built to trap you. Others are coated thick with hardened tar that scrapes your skin as you press through. The work doesn't become easier with experience. It only grows heavier, as though every climb adds another weight you must carry. When you emerge into the street again, you feel smaller than the cobblestones beneath your feet. A passing carriage splashes muddy water against your legs, soaking through what's left of your trousers. The driver doesn't even glance your way. You might as well be invisible, except for the soot that marks you. People do see that. They wrinkle their noses or turn their heads, as if your presence is an unpleasant thing that spoils their afternoon. There are moments when your stomach twists so tightly it feels as though it might eat itself. Your master allows little time for food, and what little you do get is stale, hard, or half-rotten. Today, you manage to scavenge a crust from a table left outside a tavern. You chew slowly, letting each dry bite linger, because you know it must last until night. Even so, the hunger gnaws at you like a rat that never sleeps. Sometimes, when you look at the chimneys, you wonder if they are alive in some strange way. Tall, narrow throats rising into the sky, swallowing boys like you whole. Each one a dark belly that consumes you and spits you out, blackened and broken. Perhaps London itself is a creature, and you are nothing more than fuel for its endless appetite. It is a frightening thought, yet explains why no one seems to care. Later in the afternoon, you pass by a group of children playing marbles in the street. Their laughter rings through the air, sharp and light, a sound you almost don't recognize. They are not sweeps. Their faces are not stained. Their hands are clean. For a brief moment, you stop to watch, the game pulling you in as though you were once part of it. And perhaps you were. But the master notices your pause and snaps at you, dragging you back to your work. The sound of laughter fades behind you, leaving only the rattle of your tools and the echo of your cough. The final chimney of the day is the worst. It is narrow, crooked, and thick with soot that clings stubbornly to the brick. You push yourself upward, inch by inch, your body trembling with exhaustion. At one point, your arm gives out and you slide down several feet, scraping your knees raw against the wall. Panic rises in your throat. You imagine yourself stuck here forever, pressed into the brick like a shadow. But somehow, with a desperate kick, you force yourself higher, until at last you reach the top. The relief is fleeting, replaced quickly by the knowledge that tomorrow you must do it all again. When you return to the lodging house at dusk, you collapse onto the straw pallet, too tired even to brush the soot from your skin. Around you, other sweeps lie in similar heaps, their breathing ragged, their coughs echoing in the dim light. No one speaks much at the end of the day. Words cost energy, and energy is a rare thing. You close your eyes and listen to the city humming outside. Somewhere, people are dining by candlelight, their rooms warm and bright. But not here. Here, you fall asleep with soot in your hair and hunger in your belly, hoping the morning will not come too quickly. Sleep comes, but it is never gentle. You lie curled on the pallet of straw, your body aching in every limb. The soot clings to your skin so stubbornly that even in dreams you can feel its weight. The air in the lodging house is close, heavy with the mingled smell of ash, sweat, and damp clothes hung by the fire. Around you, other boys shift and cough in their sleep, their small chests wheezing as though they've already grown old. You dream of chimneys, long, endless tunnels of brick that stretch into the sky, walls narrowing until your shoulders are wedged tight, your breath caught, your cries echoing but unheard. Sometimes in these dreams, you climb upward and upward, only to find that the opening never comes. Other nights, you fall, tumbling down the shaft, soot rushing past your face until you wake with a jolt, your heart pounding as though you truly struck the hearthstone below. The worst part is waking. The night offers no true rest, only a pause before the cycle begins again. You stir before dawn, your body stiff from cold. The pallet scratches against your skin, and hunger gnaws at your stomach like an old, familiar friend. You hear your master moving in the next room, his heavy steps reminding you that soon, another day will demand its toll. But in these brief moments between sleep and labor, you allow yourself to wonder. What would life be like if you were not a sweep? If your days were not spent crawling through the throats of chimneys, lungs filling with ash, you imagine waking in a bed with clean sheets, with sunlight streaming through clear glass instead of smoke-stained air. You imagine bread that is warm, not stale. A cup of milk, a place where your hands are not blackened and scarred, but free to play marbles or hold a book. The thought almost hurts because it feels so far from the life you know. And yet, deep down, you cling to it. Without that flicker of imagining, the darkness might swallow you whole. The master's call breaks the silence, sharp and final. You rise, rubbing your eyes, pulling on your soot-stained rags. There is no time to wash, no time for more than a quick bite of hardened crust. Soon, you're out on the streets again, the cold morning air biting at your skin. London looms around you, the great chimneys smoking, the streets filling with carts and people. The city never pauses. It breathes and shifts like a living beast, indifferent to the children who scurry through its veins. You are but one of many, nameless and faceless, swallowed by its endless hunger. As you walk, the cough begins again, rattling deep in your chest. You press your hand to your mouth to muffle the sound, but you cannot hide it from yourself. It feels as though the soot has taken root inside you, growing like a second skin in your lungs. You have heard whispers of the sweeper's cancer, the black growths that come to boys who spend too long in the chimneys. You do not know exactly what it means, but the thought lingers, heavy and inescapable. Yet still you walk, still you climb, because there is no other choice. The city has made its decision, and you are caught in its grip. The morning fog clings to the streets, curling around rooftops and chimneys like pale fingers. Your breath clouds in the cold air, though it doesn't feel clean or fresh. Even a mist seems laced with soot, carrying the city's smoke in every drift. Your master's pace is brisk, and your tired legs struggle to keep up. Each step rattles through your body, sore from yesterday's climbs. The first house of the day is large, a fine townhouse with tall windows and polished steps. The lady of the house frowns when she sees you, her eyes darting to the black smudges on your clothes. She holds a perfumed handkerchief to her face, as though your presence itself soils her air. You are sent around to the back, where the master waits, impatient. There's no pause, no kindness, only the familiar order. Up you go. The chimney yawns before you, a dark throat stretching upward into the heart of the house. You kneel, the chill of the stone biting into your knees, and begin to crawl in. The air is colder here, damp and stale, as if it has not moved since the last sweep. With each pull forward, your hands press into old soot, soft and thick, until it cakes beneath your nails. The walls scrape your shoulders. Dust fills your nose, and you sneeze, the sound echoing like a whisper swallowed by the bricks. Halfway through the shaft, it happens. You feel yourself stuck. The bricks press against your ribs and back, pinning you in place. Your breath quickens. You try to wiggle upward, then downward, but the space will not give. Panic prickles at your skin, and you can hear your own heartbeat thudding against the stone. For a moment, you imagine this is the end, that you will remain here, another nameless boy sealed in the chimney's grip. You force yourself to go still. The panic will only waste your strength. Slowly, carefully, you draw your arms upward, pressing your elbows tight against your body. Inch by inch, you squeeze forward. The brick tears at your skin, but finally, mercifully, the space widens and you pull yourself free. Relief floods through you, though your chest still heaves with the memory of fear. You do not call down to your master to tell him what happened. He would only bark at you to hurry. When you emerge at the rooftop, the city spreads out in every direction. You pause, gulping down the thin air, wishing you could stay up here longer, away from the narrow blackness below. But your master's voice cuts through the moment. Always calling, always demanding. You climb back down into the shadow of the house, carrying the soot bag heavy on your shoulder. By midday, you pass another sweep in the street. He is not much older than you, though his face looks worn and hollow, his cough deep and ragged. You recognize the sound, the sweeper's cough that rattles until it never stops. He gives you a nod, and for a moment, there's a strange bond between you. Neither of you speak, but you both know this is not a life to last long. Later that afternoon, a fire has to be cleared from a blocked chimney. The smoke billows thick into the street, and the master orders you forward before the embers have cooled. You hesitate, the heat still strong enough to sting your face, but hesitation earns you a cuff on the ear. You crawl inside, the bricks warm against your skin, the air sharp with burnt soot. The thought crosses your mind, how easy it would be to be caught by the flames, swallowed whole. But you keep moving because there is no choice. When at last the day ends, your limbs shake with exhaustion. You slump against the wall outside the lodging house, staring at the city lights flickering like distant stars. Somewhere beyond the smoke, the real stars wait, unseen. You wonder if you will ever truly see them. You hear the faint hum of London streets beyond the soot-lined walls. Carriages rumble, horse hooves clatter, and somewhere far away, a street vendor calls out about fresh bread. But for you, all of that is muffled, as if you live in another world, the world of chimneys. You rarely see the full sky. You rarely stand still long enough to watch the city's bustle. Instead, your world is fire grates, cold dust, narrow flues, and the scraping ache of your knees and elbows. You belong to the shadows, not the streets. And even when you do emerge, brushing yourself off as best you can, your place in society is clear. People wrinkle their noses as you pass. They see the soot that clings no matter how hard you wash. They see the stunted frame, the rough skin, the tired eyes of someone who works in smoke more than air. You carry London's filth on your very skin, and people would rather look away than remember how their own hearth was cleaned. Respectable folk nod politely to bakers, to butchers, to merchants, but to you, at best, they avert their eyes. At worst, they mutter soot imp. It's a kind of invisibility. You exist, but not as a person, more like a tool. And that invisibility seeps deep. Even you start to forget, sometimes, that you are more than just a job. You stop dreaming about the future, because the future is uncertain, maybe even unlikely. Every climb, every squeeze through a flue, carries its risk. And yet you go on, because the alternative, no coin, no food, no roof, is worse. Still, in those quiet moments before sleep, when your thin blanket barely keeps away the chill, you wonder what life could have been if you weren't born into this. You imagine what it must feel like to stand tall, to breathe clean air, to not fear tomorrow's climb. You imagine being the child of someone wealthy, never knowing soot except from a distance. And then, the fantasy fades and the truth presses down. Tomorrow will come, and you will climb again. But you are not alone. All around London, boys and girls like you shoulder the same fate. Some younger, some older, but all bound by soot and survival. You know their names, you hear their laughter when work is over, and though the world doesn't see you, you see each other. That small fellowship is what keeps you going. That, and the faint hope, just the faintest, that maybe things could change. That one day, someone will look at a chimney sweep and see more than just a smudge-faced child. For now, though, you return to the soot, because that is your world. You are the invisible hands that keep the fires of Victorian England burning, the silent figures who bear the weight of its warmth. And no one thanks you. Not really, but you know. You know what it means to live as a chimney sweep. You know why it's hard, why it hurts, why it scars. And as the night settles over London, you feel it, the heaviness of your place in history. A life caught between shadow and flame, a job that defines you even as it takes from you. The morning comes again, though you hardly notice it at first. The soot and the smoke have a way of making all hours feel the same. But the world outside still moves by its rhythm. Dawn breaks, and you rise from your thin straw bedding with a stiffness that makes you feel much older than you are. Your limbs ache from the previous day's climbs, and yet, before you even shake off sleep, the master is calling you to prepare. You have no time to stretch, no gentle start to the day. Instead, it begins with ash under your nails, soot on your skin, and hunger gnawing at your stomach. Sometimes there is bread, hard and stale, enough to quiet the emptiness for a while. Sometimes there isn't. And still, whether your belly is filled or not, the day does not wait. The tools are heavy in your hands, even though they are nothing but rods and brushes. The worst climbs, however, require no tools at all, only your body. That is what makes you valuable. Your size, your ability to fit where grown men cannot. You are not praised for this. You are not celebrated. You are used. And though part of you resents it, another part has stopped questioning. Work is survival. As you are led to the first house of the day, you glance up at the chimneys jutting against the pale sky. They are jagged silhouettes, like blackened teeth biting into the clouds. For most Londoners, these are nothing but symbols of warmth and comfort. But for you, there's something else entirely. They are obstacles. They are trials. They are danger. And so once again you climb. You press your back against one side of the flue, your knees against the other, shuffling upward inch by inch. The soot clings to your eyelashes, coats your tongue, fills your nostrils until every breath feels like swallowing cold dust. It burns, but you press on. To hesitate is to fall. To fall is to end it all. When you emerge at the top, you can see for a moment beyond the rooftops. You see London stretched before you. Endless rows of brick houses, the curve of the Thames, the faint spires and towers lost in morning haze. It should be beautiful, but you hardly feel that way. For you, it's not a view of opportunity, but a reminder of how much of the city still needs people like you hidden inside its chimneys. And as you climb down again, the soot rubs deeper into your skin, working its way into cuts and scrapes until the sting is a constant companion. By the time you reach the bottom, your lungs ache and your arms tremble. The master nods briskly, already thinking of the next house, the next chimney. To him, it's just another day. To you, it's another battle survived. The hours stretch endlessly. House after house, flue after flue. Each climb feels heavier than the last. And yet, you do not stop. You cannot. This is the rhythm of your life. Morning to night, soot to sleep. The repetition blurs the days together until you're not sure if one has ended and another has begun. Time itself feels like another weight pressing down, as inescapable as the soot. And still, through the ache and the smoke, you carry on. Because that is what you must do. Because in Victorian London, as a chimney sweep, survival is not about choice. It is about endurance. The day lengthens, though it feels the same as the day before, and the one before that. You are back inside another chimney, this one narrower than the last. The walls are slick with tar from years of smoke, and the air grows so thick that each breath feels like dragging fire through your lungs. You press your elbows outward to hold yourself steady, and push upward again, knees scraping, shoulders grinding against the brick. There is no light here, no sound but the rasp of your breath and the faint scuff of soot falling beneath you. It feels, in these moments, as if the world outside does not exist. Only the dark, only the climb, only the endless black pressing closer the higher you go. And yet, you reach the top. You always do. Emerging into daylight is like surfacing from underwater, your chest heaving, your skin raw. You cough violently, spitting black flecks into your hands. The master gives a curt nod. He does not ask if you are well. He does not ask if you are tired. There are more chimneys waiting, and you are small, and therefore you are needed. Between climbs, you walk the streets of London. The cobblestones are slick with horse dung, the gutters brimming with refuse. Men in top hats hurry past without sparing you a glance. Women clutch their shawls tighter as they step aside, unwilling to brush against your soot-streaked clothing. To them, you are invisible, or worse, a shadow of poverty they'd rather not see. And yet, as you look around, you cannot help but notice how many chimneys rise above these homes, how many fires burn within. Every warm hearth in this city owes its safety to someone like you, though the city itself never says thank you. In the grand machine of Victorian life, you are nothing more than a cog, one that can be replaced should it break. Sometimes, walking the streets, you notice the changes creeping in. The hum of factories, where great brick chimneys belch smoke into the sky. The rattle of carts carrying coal to feed the endless hunger of London's fires. The city is growing, sprawling outward, swallowing villages and fields. With it comes more chimneys, more work, more soot. You realize, with a sinking feeling, that no matter how much you climb, there will always be more waiting. When night begins to fall, you are not finished. The master has one last house. You are so tired now that your arms shake as you grip the rod, so weary that you nearly stumble as you hoist yourself into the flue. The bricks feel sharper tonight, or perhaps your skin is just too raw to bear them anymore. You close your eyes for a moment, breathing in the ash, forcing yourself onward. At last, the work ends. The master collects his coin. You're given a crust of bread, maybe a corner of cheese if you're lucky. And then you return to your corner, your thin bedding, the weight of soot still clinging to your hair and clothes. You do not bathe. There is no chance. You lie down in the grime and close your eyes, lungs rattling, body sore. Tomorrow, it will begin again. But as you drift, half awake, you hear the distant sound of laughter. Somewhere in the city, people sit by their warm fires, their hearths glowing with light and comfort. They do not think of you, nor the black crawl spaces you survived that day. But you think of them. You imagine, if only for a moment, what it would be like to sit by such a fire yourself. To be warm, not because of the climb, but because of rest. That thought alone carries you into uneasy sleep. You wake before the city does. The streets are still draped in fog, lanterns flickering dimly in the mist. Your body aches as if it never truly rested. The soot in your lungs rattling with every cough, the scratches on your arms reopen from your tossing in the night. There's no time to stretch, no moment to shake off the heaviness. The master is already calling, impatient, his stick tapping against the floorboards. Your breakfast is nothing more than a heel of stale bread. You chew it slowly, not because you want to savor it, but because there is nothing else to eat. Hunger has long since become another part of you, like the black stains on your skin that never wash out. The first climb of the day is always the hardest. Your muscles are stiff, your head still heavy with sleep. The flue yawns above you like a dark throat, swallowing you whole. You wedge yourself upward, joints grinding against brick, lungs burning. You cannot see the top, only the small circle of light far above. Sometimes, it feels as though you will never reach it. You think, as you climb, of how strange it is that your smallness is both your curse and your value. Were you bigger, older, you could not do this work. You could not squeeze into the chimneys where soot gathers thickest. It is your size that condemns you. Your child's body, sold into narrow passageways that grown men cannot enter. The very thing that should be your innocence has become your tool. Halfway up, you feel the familiar sting, soot in your eyes, trickling like black tears. You rub them against your sleeve, but it only grinds the grit deeper. You squint through the pain, forcing yourself higher, knuckles cracking against the wall. When at last you emerge at the rooftop, you cough until your chest seizes. The master doesn't look at you. He's already glancing at the next chimney. There is no pause. You descend, move on, climb again. By midday, your arms tremble with every push. The soot cakes in your nose, your throat, until you can no longer tell whether you're breathing air or ash. And yet you keep going, because to stop is to be beaten, to refuse is to be cast aside. And where would you go then? In the brief moments between jobs, you steal glances at the world outside your climb. A boy your age passes, dressed cleanly, carrying books to school. You watch him vanish into the doorway of a classroom, the sound of his shoes sharp on the steps. You imagine what it must be like to sit in a warm room, to hold a pencil instead of a brush and rod, to fill your lungs with something other than soot. The thought lasts only a second before the master snaps his fingers, reminding you where you belong. By the time the day bends toward evening, your skin is streaked with cuts, your clothes stiff with ash. You are weary to your bones, yet the work is not finished. Another house, another chimney, another narrow ascent where the walls seem to close in tighter than before. You wonder, as you crawl, whether the chimney itself remembers you, whether the soot has taken you in as part of its dark body. At last, the day ends. The master counts his coins, the tally of your suffering transformed into his profit. You receive little, a scrap of food, perhaps a few kind words if he is in an unusually generous mood, though kindness is rare in this trade. What you receive most of all is exhaustion, a weariness so deep it clings even as you lie down. You curl up, your body folding in on itself like the cramped chimneys you know so well. Your hands are blackened, your chest still tight, your eyes red. You listen to the muffled sounds of the city around you. Horses on cobbles, voices spilling from taverns, the low hum of life continuing as if you were not part of it. And then, slowly, you drift into uneasy dreams. Dreams of soot, dreams of falling, endlessly falling down a shaft that never ends. You wake in the same cramped bed you fell in last night, but it feels as though you never truly left the soot. The black dust follows you everywhere. It lingers in the folds of your blanket, clings to your hair, even settles on your lips while you sleep. You cough before you even sit up, the sound dry, hacking, as though the chimney itself has lodged in your chest. The master doesn't allow time for slow mornings. His boot strikes the floor, a sharp reminder that the day waits for no one, least of all you. You pull yourself upright, aching in every limb. Your knees are swollen, your elbows raw. The scabs from yesterday's climbs tear open again as soon as you stretch your arms. You barely notice anymore. Pain has become so ordinary that silence, the absence of it, would feel strange. Your first climb today is worse than most. The flue is narrow, tighter than your shoulders, and you wedge yourself upward inch by inch, ribs scraping brick, hips jammed into stone. The walls squeeze you, a crushing grip, and the soot falls into your eyes and mouth as you try to wriggle higher. You hold your breath until your lungs burn, but you can't keep it in forever. You inhale, and the soot fills you, choking, heavy. For a moment, panic rises. The space is too tight. What if you get stuck? What if the chimney swallows you whole? You've heard the stories. Boys caught halfway, their cries muffled by stone. Bodies dragged out lifeless. The flue's too narrow for rescue. You push harder, scraping skin from your elbows, twisting, forcing yourself upward because you know, if you stop, if you freeze in fear, you may never come out again. At last, with a burst of effort, you break into the daylight at the rooftop. You gulp the air like a drowning child, but even the clean wind feels tainted now, burned with coal smoke. The master below doesn't ask if you're all right. He doesn't notice the way your hands tremble or the streak of blood on your sleeve. He only shouts for you to hurry down. Another chimney waits. There are always more chimneys. The day stretches into repetition. Each climb feels the same, yet worse. Your skin grows rawer, your muscles weaker. Soot burns your eyes until they water constantly, leaving trails down your dirty cheeks. Sometimes when the light hits, you wonder if you look like you're crying. But the worst part isn't even the climbs. It's the way the world looks at you once you're out of the chimney. You stumble onto the street, covered head to toe in black, and passers-by recoil. They see not a child, not a person, but a walking smear of dirt. They hold their noses, mutter under their breath, cross to the other side of the street. The work that keeps their houses warm is the same work that makes you untouchable. You're necessary, yet despised. Essential, yet unwanted. At midday, you rest for a moment on the curb. A cart rattles by, carrying barrels of clean water. A woman buys a loaf of bread from a stall nearby. You feel the hollow ache in your stomach, but you don't dare ask. Your portion is the master's to decide, and he does not like when you linger near food. So you watch instead, imagining what it would feel like to sit at a table, to eat until you were full. The thought drifts away as another shout pulls you back to work. By evening, every breath feels like swallowing fire. The soot coats your throat, clogs your lungs. You cough again and again, each fit leaving you weaker than before. The master says nothing. He has seen it all before. If you fall sick, he will find another child. There are always more children. When you finally crawl back to your bed, you are too tired even to wipe the soot from your skin. You close your eyes, and the darkness feels no different than the chimney. The walls of your dreams are just as tight, the air just as heavy. Sleep is no escape. Only another climb in another endless shaft. The city wakes while you're already working. The first climb finished, your skin scratched raw, you step out into the chill air of dawn. The streets are damp, cobblestones slick with last night's rain. Carriages rattle past, splashing mud across your boots. No one spares you more than a passing glance. You are part of the background, another smudge in London's smoky canvas. The master walks ahead, his purse heavy with the coins he's already earned from your labor. He doesn't look back. You keep your eyes low and follow, rod and brush dragging against the ground. Soon enough, you stand before another chimney. The mouth gapes like an open wound. You know what waits inside. And still you climb. This flue is longer, twisting sharply, the kind that forces you to turn your body into shapes that don't seem possible. You bend your shoulders forward, knees tucked up to your chest, inching through the narrow dark. Every brick scrapes your skin. The soot loosens as you push upward, pouring over you in showers. It fills your ears, your hair, even the space between your teeth when you open your mouth to cough. And then, a moment of terror. Your knee catches. Your body refuses to move. The walls grip you tight, pressing from both sides. The air grows thick. You struggle, but every twist makes the space feel smaller. Panic claws at your chest. For an instant, you think this is it. This chimney will keep you forever. Another body in the bricks. You force yourself to stop thrashing. Slowly, carefully you breathe. You wriggle your hips, turn your shoulders sideways, press upward with every ounce of strength left in you. At last, with a lurch, you break free, sliding into the open air at the top. You gulp it down greedily, though even here the sky is veiled in smoke. The master calls up impatiently, demanding to know what's taking so long. You don't answer. You wipe the soot from your eyes, spit black into the wind, and climb back down. Another chimney waits. By midday, the soot has stained your skin so deeply it feels like part of you. Your hair is stiff with ash, your fingernails cracked and blackened. People passing on the street whisper about how filthy you look, how dreadful it must be to live like that. Yet they never question why you do. Their fires stay lit, their houses warm, their meals cooked, all because of children like you. When the day's work finally ends, you sit on the steps outside, too tired to move. Your arms tremble from the strain of climbing. Your chest burns with every breath. You pull your knees close, shivering against the damp London air. Around you, the city carries on. The shouts of market stalls, the clip-clop of horses, the ringing of church bells. It feels like another world entirely, one you can see but never touch. Night brings little comfort. You curl beneath a thin blanket, the soot still clinging no matter how hard you try to brush it off. Your dreams are filled with chimneys. Sometimes you dream of falling, tumbling endlessly through a shaft that never ends. Other times you dream of climbing, reaching for the light at the top, only for it to shrink further away. You wake with your heart racing, chest tight, and realize it's not just a dream. It's your life. And tomorrow, it will begin again. Another dawn, another chimney, another climb into darkness. The day begins the same as all the others, with the master's boot against the floor, the bark of his voice telling you to hurry. Your body feels older than your years, joints aching, chest heavy, but there's no space for weakness. Weakness isn't tolerated. You dress quickly, brushing yesterday's soot from your clothes, though it hardly makes a difference. The stains are permanent now. Your first chimney of the morning is damp. The flue reeks of yesterday's fire, sour with half-burned coal. The bricks are slick under your palms, and your knees slip as you force yourself upward. Each scrape sends pain through skin already torn raw. You climb slowly, carefully, aware that a single slip could send you crashing back down into the hearth. Halfway through, a cough racks your body. You press yourself flat against the walls, try not to fall as the fit rattles your chest. Black flecks spatter against the bricks. You breathe shallowly, forcing yourself onward, because stopping is not an option. By the time you emerge, soot covers your face like a mask. You wipe your eyes with the back of your hand, smearing it darker still. The master barely glances at you. He's already calculating his next job, his next coin. You are his tool, nothing more. If you break, another will take your place. That knowledge gnaws at you. It makes every climb feel heavier, as though you're carrying not just your body, but the weight of your replaceability. By afternoon, your hands shake so badly you struggle to grip the rods. The soot burns your throat, your voice reduced to a rasp. People on the street stare as you stumble past, some with pity, most with disgust. Children your age point, laughing, their fingers smudged clean with bread or ink instead of ash. Their world and yours are divided by soot, and no bridge seems to cross it. You catch sight of yourself in a shop window. For a moment, you don't recognize the reflection. A small figure, face blackened, eyes rimmed red, clothes hanging loose from a body too thin. You pause, staring, until the master yanks your arm and drags you onward. The glass swallows your image, leaving only the echo of what you saw, a ghost of yourself, half child, half shadow. The work grinds on. Another flue, another climb. The monotony is its own kind of prison. You begin to lose track of which chimney you're in, which house, which day. They blur together into one endless shaft, one endless scraping of knees against brick, one endless cough rattling through your chest. When the sun sets, London's smoke glows orange against the night sky. Fires burn in every hearth, their warmth spilling into parlors and kitchens. But for you, the fire is only something to be feared. Too close, and it sears the walls of the chimney while you're still inside, heat pressing down like a living thing. You've known boys who didn't climb fast enough. The memory of their screams lingers longer than the soot on your skin. Exhaustion drags you under as you collapse onto your blanket. You don't even bother to brush yourself clean. Sleep takes you instantly, but it offers no escape. You dream of tight walls closing in, of air so thick you can't breathe, of soot pouring over you like a flood. And when you wake, the dream is still there, because the dream is the truth. Another day will come. Another climb will wait. The cycle doesn't break. Not yet. The morning chill bites at your skin before the soot has even touched you. You shiver as you dress, the rags clinging to your thin frame. There's no time to stretch your aching limbs. The master snaps his fingers, impatient already. The day must begin, and you must obey. The first climb comes fast. The chimney is narrow, tighter than most. You force yourself upward, bones scraping against bricks. Your shoulders grind, your elbows wedge into corners. Each push feels like dragging yourself through stone. The soot clogs your nose until you can't smell anything but ash. It coats your tongue, bitter and sharp, turning every breath into a struggle. You lose track of time inside. Darkness swallows you. Your body moves without thought. Push, brace, drag, repeat. The pattern drills itself into your muscles, leaving no room for anything else. When you finally break into the hearth at the top, light blinds you. You gasp as though you've surfaced from drowning, chest heaving, throat burning raw. The master barks at you to hurry. There's another chimney waiting. Always another chimney. Always another climb. By midday, your skin is raw and bleeding. The soot sticks to the wounds, black against red. You don't even bother to clean it away. The pain has dulled to something constant, like the ringing of a bell that never stops. Your cough worsens, deeper now, echoing through your chest. Each fit shakes you hard enough to blur your vision. But still you climb. You climb because stopping is worse. On the street, you notice the way people turn their heads as you pass. They wrinkle their noses. Some mutter about filthy climbing boys, as though the soot is your choice, as though you are dirt itself. Others don't even see you. You are invisible, a shadow moving between hearths, a tool in human form. When you steal a glance at your reflection again, you hardly believe it. The child staring back seems smaller than you remember. Hollow eyes, sunken cheeks, mouth cracked from soot and smoke. You touch the glass, but the figure doesn't change. You wonder if this is who you've always been, or if the chimneys are reshaping you into something less than human. Evening doesn't bring rest. The work stretches into the night. Some households burn longer, needing their flues cleared while the fires still smolder. You slip inside, heart pounding as heat licks the bricks. The smoke rises, stinging your eyes, forcing tears down your face. You climb faster, desperate to escape before the flames grow. The walls burn against your skin, but you can't slow down. Not here. Not now. By the time you're done, your body is trembling. You stumble back to the master, who barely glances at your scorched arms before pressing a crust of bread into your hand. Payment, he calls it. Survival, you call it. Night comes, but sleep offers no mercy. You lie awake, lungs rattling, staring into the dark. The room smells of soot, of sweat, of boys like you curled on the floor. Their breathing fills the silence, some shallow, some wheezing, one interrupted by sudden coughing fits that don't stop until they collapse in exhaustion. The walls feel closer tonight. You imagine them tightening brick by brick until the air is gone. You close your eyes, trying to push the thought away. But the chimneys never leave you. Even in your dreams, you are climbing. Always climbing. Always trapped. The cycle spins on, unbroken. You cannot see beyond it. Not yet. The next morning comes without pause, without mercy. You wake to the sound of coughing. Not your own this time, but from one of the smaller boys lying beside you. His body shakes with each fit, ribs rattling like loose boards in the wind. You watch, silent, until he steadies, until he slumps back into a shallow sleep. You do not ask if he is well. You already know the answer. The master calls and you rise. Your body resists, muscles screaming, joints stiff, but habit drags you forward. You eat nothing before you begin. Hunger sharpens the edges of the world, but climbing dulls them again, grinding everything into the same soot-black blur. Inside the first chimney, the air is tighter than ever. You brace yourself against the bricks, inching higher, every scrape tearing at your skin. The soot rains down over your face, into your eyes, coating your throat until you gag. You cough, but the space is too small to recover. You just push onward, upward, until your body finally spills out into the grate. On the street, a few men gather around a tavern door, their voices carrying. You catch fragments, new laws, child labor, petitioners in Parliament. The words mean little in the moment, but something about the way they are said lodges in your mind. They sound heavier than the usual chatter, as though they belong to another world, one you cannot reach, but somehow affects you all the same. Still, the day grinds on. More houses, more chimneys. Each climb blurs into the next, until your body moves like a machine. Bend, push, scrape, drag, breathe if you can, cough if you must. Your skin cracks where soot has seeped into cuts, the black refusing to wash away no matter how much you rub. It stains you deeper than the surface, creeping under your nails into your very lungs. By afternoon, you stumble past a woman sweeping her doorstep. She pauses, watching you, frown deepening. Her lips move as if she might speak, but she doesn't. She turns away, shaking her head. That look stays with you longer than her silence. A mixture of pity and something else. Guilt, maybe. Disgust, maybe. You can't quite decide which would hurt more. Later, when the master orders you into another flue, you hesitate. Just a heartbeat, just long enough to feel the pause. He notices, of course. His hand strikes across your shoulder, sharp and final. You swallow the protest before it forms, before it dares become sound. Then you climb. Always you climb. The work stretches into dusk. Your cough worsens, each fit pulling at your ribs like claws. Still, no one listens. No one stops you. You wonder if the chimneys are your punishment or your fate. You wonder if the soot will outlast you, if you'll simply dissolve into it one day, your name forgotten, your body scattered into black dust. Yet when you finally collapse on the floor at night, you hear the smallest whisper. One of the older boys, his voice rasping, mutters about gentlemen in London who speak of protecting children. Protecting you. You don't know if he's dreaming or telling truth. You don't know if such men even exist. But you hold on to the words, turning them over like a spark hidden in ash. You don't believe in fire yet. Not yet. But the thought refuses to leave. The cycle continues. The chimneys rise. Your body obeys. And yet, somewhere deep inside, the first crack in the wall has appeared. The morning fog hangs heavy over the rooftops as you shuffle to your first climb. The cold air stings your lungs, but inside the flue, the air is worse, thick, hot, unmoving. You press your back against the wall, push upward, scrape your knees raw, and keep going. The motions are the same as always, yet something feels different today. Perhaps it is only the ache in your chest, deeper now, more stubborn. Or perhaps it is the way people on the street seem to watch you more closely. When you emerge from one chimney, a man in a tall hat stands nearby, his face sharp with disapproval. He mutters to another, "Disgraceful, children treated like vermin." You catch only those words before the master shouts at you to hurry on. The man doesn't stop him. He doesn't stop you. He just shakes his head, then disappears into the flow of London's crowd. The city itself seems louder lately. Not just the wheels of carts or the calls of vendors, but conversations spilling into the streets. Words like Factory Act, abolition of climbing boys, public outcry. They flutter around your ears like strange birds, beautiful, confusing, impossible to hold. You want to ask someone what they mean, but you know better. Questions bring punishment. Questions bring pain. So you climb. Again and again you climb. The soot cuts into your skin, burns your eyes, grinds into your teeth until you taste nothing else. The world becomes narrow, black, endless. Yet the memory of those words lingers, as though tucked into your pocket with the scraps of bread you sometimes save. That afternoon, you are sent with 2 other boys to a wealthy house, grander than most. The chimney yawns before you, tall and twisting. The master orders you up. You obey. Inside, the darkness is absolute. Your body moves, but your mind drifts, back to the man in the tall hat, to the talk of reform. You imagine, for just a moment, what it would be like to walk freely through the streets without soot clinging to you, without hunger gnawing at your belly. The thought vanishes when you choke on the dust. Your body convulses, trapped in the flu, panic surging. For a heartbeat, you think this is the end. But somehow, with sheer will, you force yourself higher until the air thins and you collapse into the open. The master curses your slowness, but you barely hear him. Your ears ring with something else. Not sound exactly, but the echo of possibility. That night, lying on the floor among the other boys, you listen. The older one speaks again, more clearly this time. He whispers about men who stand in parliament. Men who argue that no child should ever be forced into the black jaws of a chimney. His voice trembles, as though he barely believes it himself. But he says the words anyway, and you cling to them. You close your eyes, body aching, lungs burning. Yet inside, something stirs. The chimneys still own you. The soot still covers you. But for the first time, the darkness does not feel eternal. For the first time, you sense that cracks are forming, faint, fragile, but real. The days blur into one another. Each morning begins with the same rasp in your throat, the same stiffness in your limbs. You no longer remember what it feels like to wake without the ache of soot in your chest. Hunger has become a companion, so constant it feels almost natural now. The master's barked orders snap you from the numbness again and again. One chimney, then another, then another. Each flue is a narrow coffin you force yourself through, pressing your elbows and knees into the brick just to keep from slipping. The heat burns, the soot blinds. The silence inside the walls feels endless, broken only by your own wheezing breath. Sometimes you imagine you are shrinking, becoming part of the chimney itself. A creature made of ash and bone, condemned to climb forever. Other boys cough alongside you, but their sounds are faint, muffled by layers of smoke and fatigue. You rarely look them in the eye anymore. To look is to remember they are children too, and remembering makes everything harder. On the streets, life bustles on without you. Women haggle at market stalls. Men argue over newspapers. Carriages rattle by. Their world feels untouchable, bright in ways yours will never be. You watch it only in passing, a shadow slipping through the margins. When someone's gaze lingers too long on your small, blackened figure, the master jerks you forward like a dog on a lead. Whispers drift through occasionally, carried on the air like smoke from another fire. Word about change, about laws, about men who want to stop the climbing. But to you, these rumors feel like stories told to quiet, restless children. You cannot eat words. You cannot sleep inside promises. They slide past you like rain on stone. And so, the grind continues. You scrape your way up chimneys until your fingernails split and bleed. You cough until your ribs ache like cracked glass. The master curses you for being too slow, too clumsy, too weak. But still you climb because stopping would mean worse. You learn not to think too far ahead. Survival is measured one flue at a time, one breath at a time. At night, you collapse among the other boys. Their bodies twitch in restless sleep, their breath shallow. You wonder if they dream, and if so, of what. You no longer trust your own dreams. They dissolve too quickly, leaving only the blackness behind. Once you hear the older boy whisper again. This time his words are bitter. He says he's heard of children falling into fires, burning alive when the brush was lit too soon. He says some masters bury their dead in secret, for fear of the law. The younger boys shiver, clutching themselves in the dark. You lie still, staring at nothing. unable to decide if hope or horror weighs heavier. Morning always comes, though, and with it, more soot, more climbs, more pain. The days stretch on like the chimneys themselves, long, narrow, and suffocating. For now, the grind holds you tight, crushing any spark of rebellion under the weight of routine. The cracks of change are there, faint and fragile, but the darkness is still deeper. Another dawn, another ache. You wake with soot still clinging to your skin, though you scrub yourself raw in yesterday's wash trough. It never truly leaves. The black dust seeps into your pores, into your hair, into your very breath. You are a walking chimney now, shaped and scarred by every climb. The master kicks you up with no words beyond move. You shuffle out into the cold, your belly half empty, your eyes still burning. The streets are slick with morning frost, and the air smells faintly of coal smoke. To others, this is London's heartbeat. To you, it is the smell of another day lost. Your first chimney yawns before you, tall and narrow, the bricks chilled with dew. You press your palms against the walls and begin the climb. The space closes around you. The air grows stale. The silence swallows all sound but your shallow breaths. You move because you must, because stopping means punishment, because this is all there is. By midday, you have crawled through half a dozen flues. Each leaves new scratches across your arms, new bruises across your ribs. The master complains you're too slow, too weak. His words sting more than the soot, but you swallow them down, as you always do. Pain is easier than anger. Pain is familiar. On the streets, you catch scraps of voices. A woman reading aloud from a paper, her voice sharp with outrage. A man muttering about committees and inquiries. These words are foreign coins in your pocket, useless to spend. You hear them, you carry them, but you cannot imagine what they might buy. The grind swallows you back. Chimney after chimney, house after house. The soot cakes thicker until your skin feels like it is cracking beneath it. You cough until your chest rattles like loose iron. At times, your vision swims, and you cling to the bricks with trembling hands, praying they hold. When dusk falls, you return to the lodging, more shadow than boy. The room is filled with others, their faces smeared, their bodies small and twisted. You see one younger than you, his lips cracked, his eyes glassy. He coughs weakly into a rag, and when he pulls it away, there is blood. No one speaks. You all see it, and you all look away. Later, as you curl up on the hard floor, the older boy speaks again. This time his voice is low, grim. He says the work kills slowly. He says some of you will not live to grow tall. The younger ones whimper softly, clutching themselves against the cold. His words dig into your chest, heavier than the soot. But morning will come again, as it always does. And with it, the chimneys waiting to swallow you whole. The grind continues. The days keep their cruel rhythm. Wait, climb, cough, collapse. The cycle repeats until it feels like time itself has become one long chimney. Narrow, black, endless. But now, small differences begin to wedge themselves into your world, like bits of light sneaking through a crack in a brick. You notice them in snatches. A group of men huddled near a newspaper seller, arguing in heated tones. A woman pausing to glare at your master as he drags you forward, her face twisted not in disgust at you, but at him. And sometimes, late at night, you hear shouts drifting in from taverns, voices sharp with anger, demanding an end to this cruelty. The words no longer slip away like rain on stone. They catch on you, stick to you. You repeat them silently as you crawl up another flue, each scrape of your knees against the brick setting them deeper in your mind. Cruelty, end, reform. Strange, powerful words, heavy with a weight you don't yet understand. During one climb, your hand slips and you nearly fall. You cling desperately to the soot-slick walls, heart pounding. As you steady yourself, the memory of the older boys whispers returns. Children burning alive, children buried in secret. Once, those words left you numb. But now, something stirs beneath the numbness. A quiet question, why should it be this way at all? That night, when the boys huddle together on the hard floor, the older one speaks again. His voice is different now, less despairing, more insistent. He tells of men in Parliament who have stood to argue that no child should climb a chimney again. He says pamphlets are being printed, read aloud on street corners, calling masters wicked and the trade barbaric. The younger boys stare wide-eyed, unsure whether to believe him. But you lie awake long after, the words echoing. The thought forms slowly, hesitantly, like a coal ember refusing to die out. Perhaps there's a world where you are not swallowed by soot. The next day, as you crawl through yet another flue, your chest heaving, your skin raw, the ember glows brighter. You think of the woman's glare at your master. You think of the men's arguments in the street. You think of voices louder than yours, voices strong enough to reach beyond the walls of Parliament itself. For the first time, the darkness of the chimney does not feel eternal. Still crushing, still suffocating, but not endless. You imagine, just faintly, that somewhere above you is not only a rooftop, but a future different from this one. The master's shout jolts you back to reality. You climb faster, obeying as always. But inside, you carry the ember. Small, fragile, easy to smother, yet alive. The grind continues. But now, each scrape of brick against your skin whispers the same quiet truth. Things do not always have to stay the same. The morning starts as it always does. The sting of cold air, the rasp of soot in your chest, the master's sharp command. You drag your aching body forward, another day, another climb. The chimneys do not care about your fatigue. They stand waiting, hungry, ready to swallow you whole. Yet as you pass through the busy London streets, something interrupts the usual routine. A small crowd has gathered at a corner. A man stands on a crate, newspaper clutched in his hands, his voice rising above the din of carts and footsteps. He reads with fire, spitting the words as though they burn his tongue. Children treated worse than animals, forced to crawl in filth, to choke on soot, to suffer for the greed of masters. The master snarls, dragging you away. Ignore that fool, he growls. But you don't ignore it. You can't. The words cling to you, louder than the city's noise, louder even than the blood pounding in your ears as you climb the next flue. Inside the chimney, you hear the man's voice still, echoing in the silence. Worse than animals. Greed of masters. You move because you must, elbows scraping brick, lungs burning, but something has shifted. Before you thought the grind was natural, unshakable. Now you wonder, if strangers shout in the street about your suffering, how much longer can it be hidden? At one house, as you crawl out of the hearth, a lady of the house stands watching. Her hand covers her mouth, her eyes wide with horror at the sight of you, small, bent, black with soot. She turns sharply to your master. "This is monstrous," she says, her voice trembling. He blusters, bows, mutters excuses. You're shoved out the door before you hear more. But the moment lingers, heavy as coal in your pocket. That night, in the lodging, the older boy repeats what he has heard. A bill has been argued in Parliament. He says, though masters resist it. Pamphlets are spreading. People are beginning to care. His words are half hope, half warning, but you feel them deep in your bones. For the first time, you see clearly that there are two worlds. One where you climb and cough until you die, and another, faint but growing, where people with power call your suffering by its true name. As you lie awake, the grind presses in on you, but the ember in your chest glows brighter. The darkness is still suffocating, but cracks are appearing, letting in the faintest, thinnest threads of light. Tomorrow will bring more soot, more climbs, more pain. But now, the thought circles in your head, refusing to leave. If others can see the cruelty, if others will shout about it, then perhaps this life is not the only one possible. The grind is not yet broken, but it is no longer whole. The walls around you begin to change. What was once a suffocatingly narrow passage is no longer pressing against your ribs, no longer scraping your shoulders with soot. Instead, they drift outward gently, as if the bricks themselves have decided to give you space. At first, it's disorienting. You shuffle forward, half expecting them to collapse, but they hold steady, and the chimney stretches wider than you've ever known. You pause, hand braced against the rough surface. It feels different, still brick, still cold, but the sensation doesn't cling to you as before. No soot stains your skin. No grit falls into your eyes. You breathe in, and though the air remains heavy, it carries less bite, less weight. Then sound, at first faint like water dripping in the distance. But as you strain to listen, it sharpens into something clearer. A voice, perhaps? Or many voices blurred together, murmuring. You can't make out the words, but the rhythm is unmistakable. It's the cadence of conversation, the hum of a crowd, the living world beyond the chimney walls. You keep crawling forward, the tunnel now, so wide you can kneel upright. The soot is no longer beneath your fingernails, no longer in your teeth. Instead, it falls away behind you, dissolving into shadow. For the first time, you aren't weighed down by dirt or exhaustion. You are light, lighter than you ever thought possible. And as you move, the space expands again. What was a chimney begins to resemble a hall, then a corridor, then something far greater. Shadows stretch away into infinity, yet the path is unmistakable. You know you must follow it. Each breath brings you closer to something. Something larger than yourself. Something waiting at the end of the tunnel. But as you rise higher, a thought presses at the edge of your mind. A question you've never dared ask before. What if this world of soot and suffering isn't all there is? The widening space seems to whisper back, soft, inviting, almost encouraging. You don't have the answer yet, but the cracks are opening, and light, faint, fragile, and distant, is seeping through. You crawl onward, and with every movement, the chimney becomes less a prison and more a passage. You press onward, and with every step, the space around you swells. What was once a narrow shaft of brick, and soot begins to dissolve into something far stranger. At first, it is only a sensation, like the walls themselves are softening, their edges blurring, no longer rigid. The scrape of stone and soot against your elbows fades, and in its place comes a strange openness, a breathing space that does not belong to chimneys or houses or the world you knew. The walls seem to pulse, in and out like lungs drawing breath. At first you think it is your own chest echoing too loudly in the silence. But no, this rhythm belongs to the place itself, as though you have wandered inside the body of something larger, something alive. You reach out, half afraid, half curious, and your fingertips do not meet the rough grit of brick. They meet air, cool, endless air, with no boundary, no end. You turn your palm, brushing the empty space, and the soot that once clung to you falls away in fragile flakes. But before they can drift downward, they dissolve, vanishing into nothingness, as though the rules of weight and gravity no longer apply here. You glance back, searching for the narrow tunnel behind you, the cramped walls that once hemmed you in. But already they are gone, or perhaps not gone, only hidden, swallowed by this expansion. It is as though the chimney you crawled into was never a chimney at all, but a gateway, and you, without meaning to, have stepped across it. Ahead, the darkness stirs, not with light. Light does not belong here, but with movement. A ripple spreads outward, faint as a shiver on the surface of water. It stretches into the distance, widening into a horizon where no horizon should exist. A horizon in a chimney is impossible. Yet here it is shifting, swelling, rolling outward into places unseen. You take a cautious step. The ground beneath your knees and palms is no longer brick, no longer stone. In fact, it is no longer anything at all. There is no floor, no surface, and yet it holds you. You rise slowly to your feet, and though you expect to fall, you do not. You are standing in emptiness itself, carried by something that does not need to be named. The murmurs return, at first soft, scattered, like whispers carried on the edge of thought. But then they grow clearer, not voices of people near you, but voices of memory itself. Laughter from doorways, the hiss of firewood burning, the creak of wooden carts on cobblestones, the sing-song cries of street sellers. Snatches of sound from every street you ever hurried down, every corner you passed without noticing. They swirl together, overlapping, rising and fading like waves. You move forward, and the space responds. It expands with each step, widening into a vastness that has no end. The darkness is not gone, but it no longer presses in on you. It has retreated, like the tide pulling back from the shore, leaving behind this vast hollow place where time itself seems stretched thin. It feels wrong. It feels impossible, yet also feels welcoming. A relief, in its way, like loosening a collar long too tight, or drawing a deep breath after choking on soot. You keep walking. One step, then another, though there is no path. Ahead, the shimmer waits, like something hidden just beyond sight. You know, without knowing how, that this widening cannot last forever. That something lies beyond it, waiting to take shape. But for now, you allow yourself to drift. You let the space widen around you. Let the walls unravel. Let the memories hum and echo. You walk not through a chimney, not through darkness, but through a passage that has no measure. And in the widening, in the strangeness, you find a strange, fragile freedom. The space does not settle. Instead, it continues to swell, as though the very act of your being here compels it to grow. Each step you take does not simply move you forward. It unfurls the void itself, like a great black sail catching an invisible wind. What was once a chimney is now a corridor of absence, bending and curving with no walls to measure it. You pause for a moment, listening. The murmurs drift, folding over each other, rising and falling in soft cadences. Some are familiar: childish laughter, the clang of a bell, the bark of a street dog. But others are stranger, as though they belong to lives you never lived. A lullaby sung in a language your ears do not know. The rhythm of tools against stone in patterns your hands never learned. The voices of times and places that are not yours, yet cling to you like echoes of dreams you cannot quite forget. The widening deepens not only around you, but within you. Your chest feels swollen with the same rhythm, like your breath is caught up in the slow expansion of everything. You inhale, and the space seems to inhale with you. You exhale, and the vastness exhales too. For a moment, you cannot tell if it is you breathing into the void or the void breathing into you. You glance downward, though there is no ground to see. Your feet stand on nothing, yet they do not falter. It is as though you are carried, not by stone, not by wood, but by the idea of standing itself. A fragile tether keeps you balanced in this place. And though reason whispers that you should fall, reason has no power here. The dark ripples again. A tremor spreads outward, not violent, but immense. You see it roll into the distance, the way a pebble's drop stirs water. Only here, there is no surface, no water. Just absence, quivering in response to something you cannot name. You stand very still, waiting for it to pass. And it does, but slowly, reluctantly, like a sigh dragging itself through eternity. Then silence. The murmurs fall away. The expansion steadies, though it does not stop. And for a heartbeat, you are left inside a silence so absolute that even your own thoughts seem hushed. It is not emptiness. It is fullness so complete that there is no room left for sound. But then, faintly, the memories stir again. Different this time. Not scattered fragments of street corners and firesides. They come in threads, drawn longer, weaving together. You hear not only a sound, but the suggestion of a place. Wind rattling wooden shutters, rain dripping from eaves, the hush of footsteps on stone. As if the void is no longer content to echo fragments. It is beginning to build something from them. The widening curves around you like a dome. You are not lost inside it. You are at its center. The void does not engulf you. It orbits you, as though your presence here has become its anchor. You walk again, though you no longer know if walking is what you are doing. Each step feels less like moving forward and more like unfolding another layer of the place. The walls, if they can still be called that, shiver as though they are deciding whether to remain invisible or reveal themselves. They do neither. They stretch further, bending outward like the ribs of a great beast inhaling. And you, caught inside its chest, feel the pressure of being both contained and set free at once. Your body still carries soot, though less than before. It flakes and drifts from your skin in soft trails, vanishing before it can land. Each particle disappears, as though the widening devours it, as though nothing dirty or heavy is allowed to remain here. You are becoming lighter, less bound, though you do not yet know what that means. The murmurs return again, softer, more insistent. They call not to your ears, but to your bones. Not words, not songs, just the vibration of voices speaking without sound. You tilt your head, straining, but they are not meant to be understood. Not yet. They only remind you that the widening is not empty, that it waits for you to go further. And so you do. One step, then another, until the void stretches so far that distance itself loses meaning. You no longer walk through a place, you walk into it. And as you go, the widening deepens, drawing you toward whatever waits at its farthest edge. The widening does not stop. It does not hesitate. It stretches outward, and outward still, like a lung that has forgotten how to exhale. Every moment you remain here, the space seems to remember that it can always become larger. What began as a crawl space inside a chimney now resembles no earthly chamber at all. It is a vastness that spills beyond itself, a dark tide rolling into eternity. You try to measure it with your senses, but they betray you. Your eyes tell you nothing of its edges. Your ears offer no echo to gauge distance. Even your own body begins to lose its sense of scale. Are you small in this place? Are you enormous? You cannot tell. You're simply here at the center of something that refuses to end. The air, or whatever passes for air here, feels stretched as well. Thin but endless. Each breath fills you, yet never seems enough. The widening seems to breathe through you, as though your chest has become a chamber of its own, expanding in rhythm with the unseen pulse of the place. You lift your hand, watching it float in the dimness. It looks unfamiliar. The soot that once marked you has thinned almost to nothing, drifting away in faint glimmers like motes of ash fading into the dark. Your hand seems pale, almost translucent, and for a flicker of a moment you wonder if you are fading too. You walk. The walking here feels strange. Each step lands without landing. Your feet touch nothing, yet carry you forward. The widening does not resist you, does not guide you. It simply unfolds beneath your will. You take a step, and space agrees that a path should exist there. Another step, and it yields again. You begin to wonder if the widening grows not on its own, but because you're asking it to. All around, the silence grows heavier. The murmurs you once heard, those scattered threads of laughter, of work, of lives, fall away, replaced by something denser. Not sound, not even vibration. It is more like pressure, the weight of anticipation. As though the widening waits for you to notice something it has not yet shown. You stop. The void does not. It keeps expanding slowly, inexorably, a black flower unfurling with petals too vast to count. You stand at the center, yet every direction feels both forward and behind. You turn your head left, then right, but the view is the same, an endless dark canvas, shivering at the edges as if preparing to be painted upon. A strange thought creeps in. If you turned around and began to walk the way you came, would you ever find the chimney again? Or has it already been swallowed, erased by the widening's hunger for space? You do not test it. You know, without knowing how, that there's no going back. Your body feels lighter still. The weight of your small frame, once burdened with soot and hunger and endless work, now drifts like it belongs less to flesh and more to thought. The widening seems to peel you away, strip by strip, from what you once were. You feel the faint tug of your past life. Streets, rooftops, masters shouting, coins clinking. But it is weaker now. The widening does not allow much room for memory. Ahead, or perhaps around, you see a faint quiver in the dark. Not light, not color. More like the suggestion of difference, as if the void itself has grown tired of being uniform. It does not yet take form, but it lingers there, teasing the eye, like smoke refusing to settle. You blink and it is gone. You blink again and it returns. Always shifting, always refusing to fix itself. You stare too long and it dissolves as though mocking your attempt to pin it down. Still, the widening grows. Its rhythm has become your rhythm. You are not walking anymore. You are simply being carried further, pulled not by force but by inevitability. The void seems to say, this is not a journey with choices but with stages. All you can do is allow it to continue stretching, deepening, until it decides what comes next. You breathe. The widening breathes. You wait, and the darkness unfurls, still, patient, unending. The widening continues, but it is no longer smooth. There are ripples in the dark now, faint disturbances that cling like smoke. You notice them first at the edges of your sight, shadows that should not exist, given there is no light to cast them. They drift, then scatter, then return again, never quite holding still. You turn your head, and for a heartbeat, the void feels crowded. Not with people, not with creatures, but with the suggestion of presence. Blurs that lean forward, then dissolve. Curves that might be shoulders, or arches, or nothing at all. You blink, and the shadows retreat, but they do not vanish completely. They hover just at the threshold of recognition, daring you to look again. The murmurs return too, but changed. They are deeper, less scattered, almost like voices speaking through walls too thick to let words through. The sound presses against your ears without shape, not whisper, not song, but something hovering between the two. You tilt your head, straining, but each time you nearly grasp a thread of meaning, it slides away like water through fingers. You take a step, and the widening shivers. Not violently, not even with resistance, just enough to remind you that it notices. The space reacts, as though testing how much of itself it wants to reveal. And in that flicker, something lingers before you. Not a wall, not a door, not an object, but the memory of one. A faint outline, like a charcoal sketch drawn on air, trembling before it fades. You exhale, and the outline bends, dispersing into faint motes. You inhale, and new ones rise, different, shifting too quickly to understand. A window, perhaps. A beam. A hand. The shapes come and go, never whole, never fixed. The widening does not seem ready to let them become real. It only wants to remind you that reality could exist here if it chose. You keep walking, though walking feels less necessary now. The void carries you forward, as if distance itself bends to your will. With every pace, the shadows thicken. They no longer vanish entirely. They cling longer to the edges, blurring into each other until they almost resemble structures. A frame of something, the curve of an arch, a tangle of stairs, steps dissolving upward. All of it fragile, wavering, as though the void is practicing form before daring to make it permanent. And with each shadow, you feel a subtle tug within yourself. A reminder of streets you once ran through, alleys where you once hid, rooftops where you once perched. The void is not giving you your past back. It is feeding on your memory to shape its own possibilities. It steals fragments of your life, not to return them, but to try them on like costumes, seeing what fits. You pause. One shadow lingers longer than the rest. It looks like a doorway, narrow and tall, framed in trembling lines. For a moment, you feel a deep urge to step through it. Your feet ache with that old familiarity, the instinct to slip through narrow gaps, to escape. But before you can move, the shadow quivers and shatters, vanishing like smoke torn by wind. The murmurs deepen again. Louder now, more insistent. Still unintelligible, but filled with rhythm. Not language, but intent. They call not to your ears, but to your ribs, humming through the bone as though you are their instrument. The widening has grown bored with silence. It wants to speak, though it does not yet know how. You close your eyes, just for a moment, and even in the dark behind your lids, you see them. The shapes still there, faint, twitching, waiting. The widening no longer allows you to escape by refusing sight. It insists you witness. When you open your eyes again, the shadows have multiplied. They hang above you, beside you, behind you, crowding in close, but never quite touching. You move forward, and they drift back, parting just enough to make room. They do not stop you, but they do not let you forget them. They are testing how near they can draw before you break. You walk on. The void keeps stretching, but now it is not empty. It carries with it the faint bleed of form, shapes refusing to be still, half born, half erased. And though none of them hold long enough to name, You know this is only the beginning. The widening has started to imagine. The widening grows restless. Its shadows do not stay where they belong. They shift, reform, tremble, and vanish, only to reappear in stranger positions. They cling to the edges of your vision, quivering like half-finished sketches erased and redrawn over and over. Each glance feels like catching something mid-gesture, like the void is building shapes faster than you can look at them. You pause, trying to steady your breath, and for a moment the darkness seems to mimic you. Inhale, and the shadows pulse inward, as though leaning closer. Exhale, and they sway away, dissolving in a mist before gathering again. They're not alive. Not yet. But they're watching you, waiting to see what you will do. Some stretch tall, wavering like pillars that cannot decide whether they're stone or smoke. Others curl low, like staircases coiling into themselves before crumbling away. You think you see a railing, a doorway, even the faint curve of a window. But as soon as you blink, the pieces scatter, leaving you clutching at nothing but air. The murmurs deepen too. They are no longer random, no longer scattered. They rise and fall in unison, as though a chorus is practicing, warming its voice before the performance begins. You cannot hear words, but you can feel intent pressing into your bones. The rhythm sways you, making your steps slower, heavier, as though the void wants you to march in time with its unfinished song. The flickering shadows begin to overlap. They press against each other, their blurred edges merging until you cannot tell where one ends and another begins. For a moment, they almost form something solid, an arch curving overhead, a narrow lane beneath your feet, a shape like a tower stretching far above. But just when the thought begins to settle, the whole illusion trembles and falls apart. It is frustrating, this refusal to resolve. Part of you longs for the shapes to hold, for the void to decide what it wants to be. But another part of you knows, if the shadows harden too soon, the widening will lose its patience. Better to let it practice, to let it toy with the idea of form, rather than risk being crushed by it too suddenly. The soot on your skin has nearly vanished now. You glance at your hands, and they shimmer faintly, as though your body itself is joining the void in its flickering. You no longer feel like a boy covered in soot and ash. You feel like something the void is sketching too, erasing and redrawing with every heartbeat. You close your eyes again, hoping for relief, but the shadows follow you inward. Behind your lids, the darkness teems with movement, patterns rippling, shapes blooming and collapsing. There is no escape from it, not even within yourself. The widening insists that you see it, even when sight itself is denied. When you open your eyes, the shadows crowd closer. They hover at arm's length, faceless, formless, but heavy with presence. You reach out, hesitantly, unwilling, but unable to resist, and your fingers meet nothing. Yet something resists you. Not a surface, not air, but the feeling of almost touch, as though your hand is brushing against the thought of solidity. The flicker quivers, then breaks apart. You draw back quickly, heart heavy. The murmurs swell louder, almost laughing, almost scolding, though you cannot tell which. The widening grows impatient, tugging at your bones, urging you forward. And as you walk again, the flickers multiply. They form overhead, beneath you, beside you. Always collapsing, always reforming. Like 1,000 drafts of a story that refuses to be finished. And as you keep moving, you realize the void is not failing to create. It is choosing not to finish. It wants you unsettled. It wants you to remain in the tension, caught between what is and what might be. The widening stretches, the shadows flicker, the murmurs rise. And you walk deeper into the unfinished dream, never knowing which fragment will choose to hold, if any will at all. The flickers close in. What once kept its distance now presses near, swaying at the edge of your breath. The shadows no longer tremble only in the far distance. They loom beside you, crowding like restless onlookers, their blurred edges brushing your shoulders without ever settling into contact. Each step you take, they follow, adjusting their distance, always near enough that you feel them, but never touch them. The murmurs, too, lean closer. No longer a distant chorus. They breathe against your ear in surges, fragments of sound spilling over one another. You cannot catch a word, but the tone is sharper now, insistence layered with something almost playful. It is as though the widening wants you to hear but not understand, dangling meaning just out of reach. Shapes lurch in and out of existence, faster than before. A staircase rises, its steps half-formed, just long enough for your eyes to trace them upward before the whole thing collapses into dripping lines of shadow. A door appears in the air, swinging open toward you, but the hinge disintegrates before you can see what waits behind it. The fragments are unfinished, but they come in such abundance that they feel heavier than any single stable shape could. Your body reacts before your mind does. You find yourself ducking low when a shadow passes overhead, stumbling sideways when a column bursts upward beside you. The void is not striking you, not yet, but it is teaching you to flinch, teaching you to move in time with its flicker. You lift your hand and notice it wavers more violently than before, the soot fully gone now, your edges shifting like smoke caught in a draft. You do not feel whole. You feel borrowed, provisional, like you're no longer permitted to be finished either. The air grows thicker, though it carries no scent, no heat, no cold. It is thickness without substance, pressure without weight. Every inhalation drags slower. Every exhalation carries a tremor. The murmurs climb higher, weaving into sharp, overlapping tones. It feels less like listening and more like drowning in unfinished speech. And still, the shadows push closer. A wall of flickers forms before you, stretching high, black shapes blinking in and out, never holding long enough to block your path completely. You hesitate, but the widening swells behind you, pressing your back forward, leaving you no choice but to walk into the shifting barrier. You push through, and the shapes scatter like torn fabric, only to reform instantly at your sides, hemming you in. The narrowing of space makes you stumble, your arms brushing against shadows that vanish too late. For a heartbeat, you think you feel one cling to your skin before it peels away. The widening is playing with you. You know this now. It is not rushing to form something solid. Not yet. Instead, it thickens the flicker, crowding you with so many broken drafts of itself that you cannot breathe without tasting its unfinished will. It is showing you how fragile you are compared to its endless rehearsals. The murmurs crest again, swelling into a sound that might almost be laughter, though it quivers on the edge of anger. The flickers press closer still, their unstable edges brushing your cheeks, your throat, your hands. Any moment now, you fear one of them might decide not to vanish. But they never do. Not yet. And so you keep moving, hemmed in by half-built shadows, drowned in unfinished words, each step a bargain with the widening, each breath proof that it has not yet decided to crush you. The space tightens, not around you in walls of stone or wood, but in walls of shadow. The flickers multiply until they're not gaps between darkness, but darkness with gaps of air. Your world becomes fractured, a strobing cage of broken edges. Every step you take feels stolen, because the widening is no longer letting you walk so much as pushing you through its shifting barricades. You're not free here. You are pressed. The murmurs grow louder, weaving together into something less like whispers and more like the roar of a crowd. Hundreds of voices speaking at once, none clear, none willing to slow down for you. They swirl in loops, piling on until your ears ache with sound. Some lean sharp, cutting like glass, while others sink low, almost animal, vibrating the air inside your chest. The flickers themselves strike near now. One bursts from the ground, a finger's length from your feet, a column of shadow that shatters upward and vanishes before you can recoil. Another sweeps sideways across your path, grazing your arm with its blurred edge before collapsing into nothing. You stumble, not from the touch itself, but from the certainty that next time it will not vanish in time. Every moment is tension. Every step is doubt. You realize, with a cold awareness, that the widening has grown skilled at this. It is not clumsy in its chaos anymore. It is deliberate, testing how close it can come to breaking you without crossing the line. It knows you feel small, fragile, unsteady. It feeds on the anticipation of a strike that never lands. And the air, how heavy it is now. It presses down from above, pressing into your ribs, thickening your breath until each inhalation feels like swallowing ash. There is no taste, no scent, only resistance. A weight that makes you tremble, as if the widening itself has decided you will not breathe easily here. Your own body begins to betray you. The edges of your arms flicker, just like the shadows that surround you. Your fingertips dissolve, reappear, then blur again, as if the widening has reached inside you and rewritten your shape to match its instability. You are no longer solid. You are becoming one of its drafts, a flicker among flickers. The murmurs surge suddenly, all voices pressing at once, a wall of sound that shakes your thoughts apart. Your knees buckle, the shadows close in tighter, forming a circle so dense you cannot tell if there is space beyond it. You are swallowed in their strobing edges, your skin brushing against vanishing shapes until you feel cut into by things that do not exist long enough to wound you. It is unbearable, and yet you endure. Your breath comes shallow, ragged, but it comes. Your feet still move, even when they stumble. The widening presses you, suffocates you, hammers you with unfinished forms and unfinished voices, but has not broken you. Not yet. For a moment, just a moment, you sense something behind the flicker. A stillness deeper than the chaos, as though all the noise and shadows are a veil stretched thin over something else. Something that waits. But before you can focus, the widening surges again. The flicker snaps sharper, nearer, angrier. The murmurs crash in another wave. You are crushed once more, drowning in half-shapes and half-words, trapped inside an unfinished storm. The widening still hurls its flickers against you, shadows breaking and reforming in strobing walls. Yet for the first time, a silence slides between the strikes. It is not long, barely a heartbeat, but you notice it, and noticing it changes everything. The murmurs falter too, not all at once, not in unison, but unevenly. A single voice drops away, then another, leaving behind a gap in the noise, a hollow through which you hear your own breath. Rough, shallow, strained, but yours. It feels alien to hear it again, after so much time crushed beneath their roar. The flickers hesitate. One darts upward and hangs, stretched longer than it should, as though caught in indecision. Another quivers in place instead of vanishing outright, trembling like a flame fighting to hold its shape against the wind. They're still chaotic, still dangerous, but they're no longer seamless in their attack. Something is slipping. The weight on your chest does not vanish, but it lightens. The air is thick, but less suffocating, and each inhale comes easier. You feel your lungs expand farther than they did before, enough that your ribs ache with the sudden effort. You had forgotten what it was like to breathe fully. You stand straighter. Not tall, not free, but straighter. The shadows around you twitch, as if in response. They do not like this. Their circle tightens again, pressing in close, but their edges are blurred, imperfect. Where before they crushed you without flaw, now they stumble. The widening is still vast, still overwhelming, but cracks show in its surface. And in those cracks, you feel yourself beginning to return. Your fingertips solidify. Not completely. Now and then, they blur at the edges, but enough that when you clench your hand, you feel the firmness of your own grasp. Your legs, heavy with strain, find steadiness beneath you. You are not only enduring anymore. You are resisting. The murmurs notice. They swell again, louder, harsher, desperate to fill the gaps. But in their desperation, they change. A few voices, hidden among the countless layers, stretch into tones that almost sound like words. They break apart before you can understand them, but the rhythm is there. Speech, buried beneath the storm. It frightens you, but also steadies you. Because words mean structure. Words mean order. And order is not the widening strength. You take a step forward. The ground beneath you, once trembling with shifting shadows, holds steady for more than a breath. Another step. It shudders again, but slower this time, as though unsure whether to collapse. You are moving through a space that finally, after so long, hesitates to erase itself. The widening still looms, pressing from every angle, but it is no longer perfect. And for the first time, you understand perfection was its strength. Without it, the storm begins to lose its grip, and that knowledge burns inside you like the first spark of warmth after a long winter. The storm does not end. You know it will not end so easily, but for the first time it bends. The murmurs, once a relentless tide, recede into the distance, as if drawn away by some unseen pull. They don't vanish entirely. They linger, low and fractured, an echo rolling at the edge of your awareness. But compared to the ceaseless roar you endured before, the silence between their whispers feels impossibly wide. You draw in a breath, deep, fuller than any in what feels like hours, days, perhaps longer. The air does not scrape as it enters your chest. It does not burn. It slides smoothly, as though the world itself has remembered that lungs are meant to expand. For a moment, you almost forget what it was like to suffocate beneath the press of voices. The flickers, too, begin to change. They still flare and collapse, but their rhythm has slowed. A flare lingers at the edge of your vision, glowing long enough for you to trace its shape. Not a flame, not a shadow, but something in between, like molten glass cooling midair. It wavers, but does not instantly vanish. The constant snapping chaos has fractured into patterns, small though they are. And then, astonishingly, one of them steadies. It hovers near you, pale and trembling, yet it holds its form for several breaths. You stare at it, and for the first time in this endless widening, you are not overwhelmed. You are curious. The sight is strange, yes, but it does not harm you. It feels patient, as though waiting. The shadows, too, retreat slightly. They no longer close in with suffocating certainty. Their edges blur, and where they overlap, gaps appear. Thin seams of open space through which you glimpse darkness unbroken by movement. It is not light, but it is empty, and empty feels safe compared to the crushing press you endured. Your body responds in kind. Your shoulders sink, not from defeat, but from release. The tension that bound your spine loosens, and you feel weight drop from you, heavy as chains unfastened. Even your heartbeat slows, no longer a frantic drum, but a steady pulse. Loud in the quiet, but strangely reassuring. You realize you're standing still. Not bracing, not swaying, not clutching at the ground as if it might dissolve. Simply standing. The floor beneath you does not crumble. The air does not claw. The widening still hums around you. But in this fragile pause, it feels less like a monster and more like a tired sea, rolling but distant. You listen. For the first time, you hear something beyond the murmurs. A faint sound, almost imperceptible, hidden in the seams of silence. It is not a voice, not quite, but a note. A low, single tone stretched thin and delicate, carrying no malice. You can't tell if it comes from within the widening or from yourself. It soothes. You close your eyes, not out of fear, but choice. The storm remains. The widening breathes. The shadows stir. But within this moment, you are not consumed. You're not breaking. You are allowed, if only briefly, to rest. It is the first calm, and even if it lasts only a breath, it is enough to remind you that the widening can falter, that you can endure, that perhaps, beyond the storm, something waits. The calm stretches further than you expected. At first, you wait for it to break, for the storm to surge again and tear away the fragile stillness. But it doesn't. The shadows continue to blur, their edges unraveling into faint threads that dissolve as you watch. The flickers fade too, not in violence, not with sudden collapse, but gently, as though they were never meant to last forever. And the murmurs, they quiet. One by one, they fall silent, until only a faint hum remains. Even that hum grows weaker, like an old voice losing strength. The space around you, once too full to endure, now feels vast and empty, like a hall after the guests have gone. For the first time, the widening itself loosens its grip. You feel it withdraw, not in defeat, not in anger, but almost with resignation, as if it accepts that the storm cannot hold you forever. Its endless tide ebbs, receding into a distance you cannot see. The horizon clears, and with it, the weight that pressed against you all this time lifts away. You take a step. The ground beneath you is firm. Another step, and the silence deepens. There are no whispers now. No shadows darting at the edge of your sight. Only you, standing in a space that feels impossibly free. And in that space, a thought begins to bloom. You imagine, just for a moment, what it would mean if this widening had not faltered. If you had been born in its storm, lived within its grip, and never known a world beyond it. A world where every breath was a fight, where every shadow threatened to consume you, where silence never came. A shiver runs through you, not from fear, but from the clarity of it. You endured, yes, but if this had been all you knew, if there had been no end, how could anyone survive? Your mind drifts, gently now, from the storm to the lives that once were. To the days of children forced into chimneys, of soldiers pressed into wars they could never win, of peasants who knew hunger more intimately than rest. You think of the weight they carried, and how little choice they had but to endure. Their widening never ended. And then, quietly, you look at your own life. The warmth of a bed, the glow of a light you can switch on or off, the ease of water at your command, food that does not come with famine shadow, the small, uncounted comforts that you forget to notice. How lucky you are. The widening dissolves completely now, leaving only stillness. A silence not empty, but peaceful. You exhale, long and steady, and the breath carries no fear. Only gratitude. You realize that survival is not always about strength. Sometimes it is about time, about when and where you happen to be born. And you, standing here, are spared. Spared from the storm, from the suffocating darkness, from lives that could have been yours in another century. The shadows are gone. The murmurs are gone. The widening is gone. And in their absence, only this remains. A quiet reminder of how much lighter your world truly is and how rare and precious that luck is. You step forward once more, not into chaos, but into calm, into the life you have, into the peace that countless before you never knew. The story ends here with you, awake, aware, and grateful. And so, as the echoes fade, you return to the quiet of your own world. If you've listened this far, thank you for walking through the storm with me. Take a moment now to breathe, to rest, and perhaps to let sleep find you. Before you drift off, I'd love to know, what time are you listening from? And where in the world are you? Write it in the comments if you'd like. It's always comforting to see how many of us are sharing this same quiet moment, even from different corners of the world. Good night, sleep well, and remember, you are living in gentler times than those before us.